Hello everybody, Tim here with the first in a series of RodLab video tutorials. And in this video I'm going to cover downloading, installing, and some basic configuration for the RodLab software. And I'm using this video format because this way you can watch what I'm doing with my desktop as I do it, and I think that's going to be very helpful for guiding people through it, hopefully better than just written directions. I'm using Windows 10 here. Things will be maybe look a little different and maybe have a little different directory structure in Windows 7 or other versions of Windows. And one thing I find useful is a lot of times I like to follow along with these types of video demonstrations, and I'll put the video on pause or back up, and then I'll go try that step on my own computer and then resume the video as necessary. So let's get started. First thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to the Two-Handed Software homepage to download a installation file, and the video link will show the link here, but you don't actually have to remember that. I will put the link itself in the video on YouTube. And as an example, I've got another video that I've added a link to, so it's right here. Just click on this, and here we are at the Two-Handed Software homepage. I've got some directions here, handwritten, not going to be very useful for this. Just following along with what I'm talking about and showing on the screen will be more helpful. So right at the bottom, I've got this zip file for RodLab 4.0, and if I right click, or actually left click on this pop-out window, it'll open up a new page. And there is a download link in the upper right hand corner. I'll click on that, and it's going to take a second for Google to go out and find the file on the server, and it will download it to my download folder. What I like to do is I right click and say show in folder. So here's the files I've downloaded. I'm going to cut it out of here, and I'm just going to drop it on my desktop, and it'll be a little easier, I think, for you to see what I'm doing this way. So this is a zip file. I think all versions of Windows now support unzipping zip files. I actually have WinZip installed. If you have problems at this step, let me know and we'll get you files in a different format. So what I'm going to do is I am going to unzip this to a folder on my desktop. Should be coming up. There it is. So here's a new folder with my install files. When I open this up, I've got a setup.exe. So I will double click on that, and as you see, I get a Windows Defender warning, and the reason for that is it says unknown publisher. I'm not a known publisher, and I'm not a software professional, and to become one costs several hundred to several $1,000s a year. It's just too much of a barrier. I'm not going to do that. So I just click run anyway, and this will bring up the setup file. I'll say next. Put the program files in my program files folder, and then click next again, and it'll ask, do I want to do it? Yes. And now it's uploaded all the files to my computer, and it's also created a few more files that I'll show you. So when I look over here in my documents folder, I now have a RodLab folder beneath my documents, and it has two folders in here. There's a G-code folder, which is where I put all the output files for RodLab, all sorts of things, G-code for running machinery, but also things like planing reports and actually full reports. So here's an example planing report that I've included. HTML format, you can open this up and look. Coming back here, maybe the more interesting folder is a tapers folder. I've included a number of what I'll call classic tapers with the program as well. And in a later version, I'll show you how you can actually add new tapers of your own. And other things that I've added, I've now got this link on my desktop for RodLab. And I also have in my programs folder, there's going to be a RodLab folder with a RodLab link here as well. So I'm going to double click this RodLab icon to start it. And when I do, I'm not going to get any error messages because I've installed it in the past, but you probably will get a bunch of messages about missing config files. That won't matter. It's a warning that they're missing, but it will rebuild valid config files for you. And you shouldn't get that error anymore. If you get that error later, there would be questions as to why those files are missing. So double click and I'll open it up, and this kind of brings up what I'll call a launcher window. And since I'm up and going, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to delete these two right here. That's the zip file and the folder I created with the install files. I don't need those anymore, and I'll just move my link back over here. So first thing in the lower left corner here, I've got a bunch of buttons. This About RodLab brings up all the licensing information. It's freeware. It tells you what you can and can't do with it. Next thing I'm going to bring up is actually the config window. So RodLab needs to know where to find those files that I just showed you, the taper files number one. And with my computer, it always comes up correct. With other computers, I've seen about 50-50 of getting the right folder. So first thing you want to do is double check, are we in the right folder for tapers? So I click on that and it lets me pick a folder. So it'll be under Documents, RodLab Tapers, perfect. And for the G code, which is the output path, same thing right next to it, Documents, RodLab G code. So that's all correct. And I'm going to close the file back up here. And we'll deal with this other stuff in a later video, but I do want to show you that, if you open this up and play with it and decide it's not for you, you can come in here in Windows 10 into Settings and Apps, and it's probably easier to type it rather than to search for it. So here's RodLab, and if I click this, it'll uninstall. And this will take out all the program files and all the tapers that RodLab installed. If you created new tapers, they'll still be there. So close it up. As you can see, that link is gone and all my files are gone. So hope this is helpful, and we'll pick up in a new version later. Thanks.